then by all means afterwards, come on, I've got to answer some questions. Welcome everybody. If I could get attention for a minute here, I'm going to just go over a few things for a few minutes so we're all on the same page going forward with this, and then we'll have a little question and answer, and then after that, Randy and myself and Marion are here to answer any questions, and you can come up. I know you can't see most of this from a couple rows back, so come on up and we'll have some questions. For those that don't know me, I'm Jeff Shaw. I'm the assistant administrator here for the town, and I want to give us just a little bit of a background on where we've been with this whole concept, and kind of how we got to where we are today, and what we hope to take from this meeting so that we can move forward and we can give the councils enough information moving forward. So I want to go back about 3 years. In 2007, many of you may remember a recreation survey that was sent out to the whole area, county and town and around the surrounding area. And it was about all the recreation facilities that the town had. Ball diamonds, swimming pool, ice center, and the whole thing. It asked a number of questions such as, are you satisfied with the current facilities? What would you like to see? What should be done in a year? What should be done in 5 years? Things like that. So there was good response to that. I have a couple of those studies here if anyone wants to look at them after. And in this one I put little tabs in the pool specific questions. I'll share a couple with you just so we have some kind of perspective on how we got to this point. This is both town and county respondents. And asked how often in a typical month you use the following facilities. When it came to the swimming pool, there are over 17% of them that use it over 12 times a month. So some daily users or more. And about 51% of the residents that responded used the pool. And again, this wasn't just a pool-specific survey. When we went over it, asked if you're somewhat satisfied or not satisfied, etc. with all the facilities. When it came to the pool, the largest amount of people were not satisfied with the current facility. And so it gave us a really good indication that that's the facility that needs focused on. Of course, there's other things in the pool that give us that same indication, like fixing the roof as much as we do and things like that. But this was a good statistical evaluation. There was a question about, currently the town does not have the following facilities, one of them being an indoor swimming pool, and it says, please indicate how important you feel these are at this time. And 51% of the respondents said that that was something they felt was necessary in the community at this time. This was, I guess, within the next 5 years, another question of considering feasibility of these kind of facilities. Please consider that a facility would result in potential costs to taxpayers for construction and ongoing operations. Please indicate your level of support for such a facility. And 68.6% of respondents were supportive of, and they understood there was going to be some cost associated with it, and that they would bear that cost as a community. So that was basically the gist of the survey related to the pool. Then what happened is Westman Management Solutions, who did it, they created an ideal concept. If we could build anything we wanted today in the community to meet all the needs of the people, what would it look like and what would it cost? Well, the answer to the cost was $23 million to build this thing, which any large center would balk at that kind of a cost. But it gave us a really good idea of what these things cost per square foot and what those and it made us prioritize amenities. So, all right, we can't have a 3,000 square foot daycare. Well, let's take that out and let's narrow that down. We can't have a 20-person hot tub, so let's take that out and look at different things. So it gave us a benchmark to start looking at costs and priorities. And they also looked at the operational costs, and it was going to cost about $2 million a year to run, which again would make even the larger centers get probably cringe just a little bit. But it gave us a good start. So that started the process from town council's point of view of saying, okay, we have a pretty clear understanding that the community wants something new as far as the pool goes. At the same time, we know we can't break the bank, and we can't, put something out there that's just not feasible. So then I've been with the town a couple of years, and this is kind of when this survey all happened. And so since then we've been looking at some of the options. So fast forward to recently, through some consultation with a number of different groups, we called a little steering committee together, which consisted of stakeholders from not all, but the major groups in the community: Alberta Health, school, county, blood reserve, handicap association, I think I said seniors organizations. And there was quite a number of us. And we sat down and said, okay, what do all of our groups need? Understanding financial constraints, what do we want? And can we start putting something together? Can we start getting something on paper? Because right now we have this really conceptual idea. So we looked at that, the feedback from that group, and we also looked at what other communities were doing in the province. There's a number of construction projects on the go at any time in the province. So we looked at their costs, what they were doing, and the needs of their community. And what we ended up with was a conceptual design, which is both up here, and it's also in your packages in an 8.5 by 11 format. And we took this design and we priced it 3 different ways. So we priced it first as a seasonal outdoor facility. And many of you, if you've been down to Raymond, would notice it's fairly similar. The pool house is very similar, and the pool is close. The only thing we asked on for the pool is it was just a little better than Raymond's. That was the only criteria. And otherwise, we weren't concerned about anything else. So that's what, we used the same architect to ensure that. And so that's what we got for there. So we looked at it as a seasonal outdoor. We looked at it as an indoor covered by what's called a sprung structure, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it's essentially, some of you looked at this insulated tent concept. So that's a sprung structure. We priced it that way, and we priced it with conventional steel, wood frame, conventional construction. We looked at it 3 different ways. So that's kind of where we are, what we put together. And then we also went and gathered, and I know you can't all see this here, you don't have this in your packets, but we went and gathered what operational costs and operational deficits of pools specifically were in communities of a relative size. We didn't look at Edmonton and Calgary and Red Deer and Medicine Hat. They have very large facilities that we couldn't compare the scope to, and they have huge populations to support. So we looked at 7 facilities. The first one here is an outdoor facility, and the rest are indoor facilities. Now, it's important to note that while there's some large numbers here, some of these included, like in this example of a community of 4,300, their deficit included their ice rink and their curling rink and those other things. So they weren't able to break those numbers out for me, but I put it there because it gives us a bit of an idea. Let's assume half of that is pool. It still gives us a good idea of what those costs are. So now we've got all that information together. That brings us to tonight. And I appreciate all of you who are here. I know that because you're here, you either have a keen interest in a pool facility or a keen interest in the finances and the long-term responsibility of the community. And those are both interests that I think can coexist very well as we look towards this facility and try and provide a service for the community. So what I'd like to get from everybody tonight is I'm hoping to get more detailed feedback on the scope of this facility and the amenities. So keep in mind, when you look at this, I would like feedback on, does this building work for our community? And I'm not asking you necessarily is, do you want a roof over it or not? That question's in there and you'll get to it. But keep in mind, this is the design, covered or uncovered. I want to look at, is it providing what the community needs? Is it providing what the kids need? Is it providing what the seniors need? And everybody in between. So is that a design that works? I want that feedback. The other thing we want to know is, are we not thinking of some programming? Are we missing opportunities to work with other organizations in programming that would be beneficial to it? And are we missing something there? So I'm asking you in those questionnaires you all have for that kind of feedback. So that's what I want to do here tonight, and I want to be able to answer questions that you may have and take some notes on things that maybe we haven't considered or that need to be considered more carefully. We know in this process we can't satisfy everybody here. That's a given. You all have different expectations and needs in the community, and I appreciate that. But we want to try and satisfy the majority of the residents. This is the community's decision. This is not administration's decision. It's a council decision based on feedback from the constituents in the community. And so that's why we want these meetings. We did not want to assume the needs of the community and make that decision. So we really need that feedback. And for those of you who maybe don't feel that we can accommodate you, we still want that feedback so we can examine those areas where you feel there's a gap more closely. So please be frank and please share that information with us. I want to review just a couple of things in this packet that you have. It's relatively straightforward. The questions are, I've lifted them from other surveys that other communities have done for the most part. I just want to point out a couple of things. When we look at, in our questions 12, 13, and 14, it talks about the funding of this facility. And whenever in a municipality we have a shortfall, the taxpayers pay that shortfall. That's how we get the money. So when I talk about how much per household it would equate to, that's based on if everything else stayed the same. So no other cuts in service, no other change in anything, but all things being equal, this is roughly what it would cost if we split it amongst us all. But there's always options, and your council makes this decision if other services need to go or if other priorities need to drop down. That offsets those costs, but when I talk about per household cost, that's all things staying as they are. So no other services being cut, no other programs being cut. All that staying, so we're going to have our cake and we're going to eat it too. So just keep that in mind. And when you go through those questions, otherwise they're fairly straightforward. The next 2 pages, you'll just see a page of the field house, which is just this, broken out on its own page. You'll see a picture of the pool, which is again just this, and then together. So a couple of things that you'll see in here. The site we've planned for is the existing site of the pool. That doesn't mean that has to be its location, but we have that site. We like that it's downtown and it's central in the community. And so when we've done our planning of what will fit and how all these buildings and pools will fit, that's what we've used as a reference. But it certainly doesn't mean that there's not other appropriate land. And that question's asked in your survey. That's what we're planning, but if you have a better idea, by all means. And we've had some good ideas, and we'll have to look at that as we move forward. So that's my ramble. That's the precursor to, we'll do a little bit of Q&A, and then there's still going to be people trickling in and out, so I think we'll kind of do a group question and answer between the 3 of us, Randy and Marion and I. Hopefully we can answer everything. And then we'll stick around. We're going to be here till everyone's kind of asked what they wanted to ask, but come on up and look things over. I wanted to touch base, I forgot, and sorry David, and then I'll get to you. On the Sprung structures, if you're not familiar, you'll see this, their headquarters is in Alderside off the highway as you go to Calgary. And they're basically those pitched tents, and they come in, and you'll see on the cost, and I guess I should show that. When we looked at an outdoor pool, we took the average construction cost of 2 recently done outdoor pools that were similar to this in scope. We estimate, and I think personally on the high side, around 1.7 million to build a seasonal outdoor pool, to build this with nothing over top of it. When we looked at a Sprung structure, we had them look at what we need, try and fit this inside something to fit on the site. They estimate that would be built roughly around, well, it's not too much of an estimate, it's pretty specific, but $5.167 million. So a little over $5 million to build that. And then when we looked at conventional construction, about 8.4. And that number is based on, again, per square foot construction numbers from other facilities happening in the province right now. So that's where those numbers are pulled from. I'll also point out, when we looked at facilities, again, Cardston Pool right now, our average of from 2006 to 08, we had an operational deficit of about $101,000. Excuse me. Another outdoor pool was about 115, so similar. And then we got into other communities with indoor. Community of 3,625 had a deficit of 466,000. 7,591 was a deficit of 401,000. A community of 4,275 had a deficit of 700, but again, that's ice rink and curling rink and pool, and they had a kind of a big multi-purpose area too. 6,576 was 193,000, which is great for a year-round facility, and they're doing some really unique things that I think if we go down that road, we can model after them. They have some great partnerships and are doing some great things. 3,000 people, 353,000, and this one actually never got built yet. This was a feasibility study done. It's a community of 14,000 in the province, so it's quite a bit larger. But they were anticipating a loss of $616,000 a year on that facility, even with 14,000 people. And so it's actually kind of in limbo. They did a preliminary study, and they shared with me the preliminary study, but that facility doesn't exist yet. That's estimates. So that's all my numbers. We'll do a little bit of Q&A. I hope there's not 1,000 questions because for time and everything, but I've got a couple. I got 3 hands going here, so David.
Jeff, you mentioned the shortfall comes from the taxpayer in your little dissertation just now.
Partially, yes, it does.
Where does the rest of it come from?
User fees, obviously. So those that use it pay, just like the current facility. Rest would come from partnerships, programming. If people are using it for, if let's say Alberta Health wanted to use it, if schools wanted to use it, it would depend how many programming partners we could put together, but that's where it would come from. It's programming and user fees and taxes is how you
much of it comes out of grants?
For operational, I would be safe to say none.
What about capital?
50 cent dollars potentially.
And who makes that up?
The other 50 cents,
Yeah,
it would be the community.
taxpayer.
Now, I will say,
All grants come from the taxpayer.
that's right, they're all tax funded somehow, just not municipally. I will say that the town for the last, Marion would say 15 years has been putting some money away in a reserve account. So we have a little under $500,000 that's been reserved over about 15 years to start down this road. So that we have something to start on the way. But $500,000 is, sounds terrible to say, but it's only $500,000. And at the scale, that's something to overcome. Sir?
Did you look at the Pincher Creek facility,
Yes, sir.
and how did that compare as far as?
Pincher Creek loses a considerable sum, around the average of $400,000 a year. Theirs is a little bit unique, and we ran into a lot of unique situations. Pincher Creek shares with their library, if I'm not mistaken. That's all managed kind of under one umbrella. They split some of the utilities, they split some staffing, they have a bit of a unique situation, but they were able to attribute closely pool expenses. The other one I mentioned to a few people earlier, we looked at Claresholm, a very unique situation. Alberta Health owns the pool, and in turn, Alberta Health uses a lot of the daytime hours for health therapy and programming, and the town of Claresholm simply staffs it. But Alberta Health maintains it, they pay for repairs, they do all those things. So, love to have that situation. I don't see that happening, given the current economic climate of the province and with Alberta Health. But theirs was a little unique, so Claresholm isn't on here because we weren't able to split those costs out fairly. Just,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll do that. Well, that made me think of one of the questions I had, is with the design you have, could it be used for therapy type situations for people with walkers or wheelchairs, or like the design you have? Is there a way to go in?
Yeah. When we
Jeff,
looked at this,
Jeff, just to interrupt if I might, when people have a question, if they could stand up and face the audience so the audience can hear the
so the
question.
question was, talking about therapy and things like that, would this new pool accommodate people with access for people with mobility limitations or issues, wheelchair and that? This pool in this case would ramp in at a very slight slope, fall in, and then ramp into a leisure pool, which is probably 5 feet deep, and then into the junior Olympic lane pool, which would be at the proper depth for the lane swim and the competitive swim. So any new facility, if I'm not mistaken, normally would comply with any regulations for persons with disability or mobility issues, and definitely it would ramp in, this whole section would ramp into the main areas. Rebecca?
With this sprung structure, would that allow us to use the pool 12 months of the year?
Yeah, it's actually insulated to an R50 throughout the whole building. So it has its limitations in that you actually, you have a nylon shell over the thing, for lack of I think it's nylon, I could check the specs, but so you have some longevity issues, and you gotta plan to replace that, more often than you would say conventional siding or conventional exterior finish. But yes, the intent is that it's a year-round use, highly insulated, sealed use. And
I'm sorry, Jeff, can I just jump in? Would that be like Lindsay Park or the Talisman Center in Calgary?
I don't know. I can't.
Because that's a great
apologize,
center,
I can't
that's
see
a lot like that.
Randy can.
I think it is very similar to that, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
So a similar concept. Yeah. I had somebody.
Is there any studies done on the economic impact on the town, in that it would help provide a tourist attraction to the town, in that there's no other such facility in the area, and how that would impact?
No is the answer to your question, but I'll put a qualifier on that. We've had a lot of discussion around, when we look at a facility like this, are we trying to provide a service to the community, or are we trying to build an attraction? And they're very different. The look of the facility, the management of the facility, the construction of the facility changes considerably whether our goal is to build an attraction, which is maybe an appropriate goal. I don't know, but I know we've had this conversation that if we think we can attract people into the community on a recreational base to come in for the whole day or come in for a weekend and use a facility because it does stand out from anything in the area, then we need to shift gears to look at building an attraction. Because with something to provide services for the community, I'm not going to market that. I'm not going to budget marketing dollars. But if I'm going to build an attraction, I'm probably going to budget considerable marketing dollars and try and get that name out there. The fees look different, the membership looks different, the tax implications look different, but it is something that's been kicked around And it's something that before this whole process is over, we really do have to have a look at. I'll jump off a little bit on that point. On the wet side of the pool, so you have an architect that does the dry side, you have a group that does the wet side. We've been consulting with Western Recreation out of Winnipeg, and these guys basically do pools all over North America. That's their thing. And that was one of the questions they asked us very first. Are you looking to build an attraction, or are you looking to build a municipal pool? Because they look different. And Randy and I were talking earlier, we had an example of that with the little pool in Kalispell. It's just a little pool off to the side, but it was built as an attraction. And they built it so people stay all day and they use the concessions, and it's an outdoor pool, mind you. But they built it to bring tourists in, buy lunch, buy dinner, use the concessions, and it's totally set up different. It was really a whole different concept. And when we talked with the people from Western Rec about it, they said that's the difference in an attraction and a municipal pool. So yes, it's been talked about, but no, the study hasn't been done on economic yet.
Have you guys looked at having like some facilities have private businesses in there that they rent to the town, like restaurants, whether, I know the current pool has a weight facility in there, that kind of thing, to bring in additional dollars as well?
Yeah, that raises a couple of questions, one of them being kind of a fundamental role of the community. Should the town get involved in commercial real estate? Do you want the town being a landlord and a leaseholder to commercial entities? Some would say yes, because it helps offset costs, and some would say no, that's a private sector business. And so we have to kind of juggle that just a little bit. But we've talked with the gym, we've talked with people like gymnastics, we've talked with a number of those recreation groups and said, could you enhance your programming by using this facility, and what could you bring to the table? You know, what are the dollars, what's the programming, what can you do? Could we add a wing, could we add some extra feet on the end, and what could happen there? So that's all kind of happening right now. We've met with, for example, the Windy City Gym and said, how would that enhance your product, your offering? And could we have a win-win there?
What do the numbers look like from Raymond? Like, they have a new facility that's very similar to this. Their old facility was similar to what we had, or what we have. What's changed there?
I'm waiting for 2010's numbers, and I'm going to get them, but it's
Because they'd have a number of visitors. I mean,
Yeah.
theirs is built much like this. It is kind of an attraction for the area. It is drawing people.
They foresee, again, this is just based on a couple of conversations with their CAO. They foresee the interest going in a bit of a bell curve. So they have something unique to the community. Most of us have gone there. We went and checked it out. Really cool, really neat. Well, McGrath's going down the same road we are, and Carson's going down the same road. And they anticipate that they're going to peak this year. They maybe even peak the end of last year. And then things will level off where they're now supporting their community. And that's what it's doing.
So, in addition, I guess my next line of thinking is, we've been in a community that's never had an indoor pool, right? And the problem is, to start out with an indoor pool seems onerous, I mean, to the taxpayer and to everyone involved. But in reality, we know, like anything else, we didn't have soccer how many years ago, Stacy?
Well, you had 88 12 years ago, 88
Right.
kids playing.
And what happens is, this has to be a training thing, right? If you build an indoor pool and you can get that done, by year 4 or year 5, the use is going to be completely different. Because we have people in town that go to Lethbridge to the Ramada, they go into lane swimming, they go into all these things, which has never been an option here. We've never had an option to really have a school program. The smaller communities go to Pincher Creek for their programming,
Yeah.
because there isn't an option here.
Yeah.
Right? McGrath doesn't have an option. And so I think there's an opportunity here to maybe look a little bit down the road at what impact this will have on young kids now that grow up with an indoor pool. Their usage is going to be a lot higher and a lot different than how we grew up with. We had 60 days in the pool or 70 days in the pool if we're lucky.
And that goes back to when we kind of have an idea of what, if we have amenities sufficient, and then we start looking at these opportunities, if it's indoor or out, what's the buy-in going to be from programming partners? And that's what we'll have to look at. And I agree with you that it is probably something that will gain some momentum as kids get more involved. Again, soccer is a classic example. And now we're building this beautiful new soccer field to support that infrastructure, that amount of kids looking for that facility. Paul?
It just seems a little bit crazy to me, the thought of building another outside pool. I understand the cost, I understand all of that. I mean, but I run the swim club here, I run the adult swim here. I talk to swimmers, we're in the water all the time. I pretty much know what Cardston does as far as swimming goes. And I think it's ridiculous, like in Raymond, because of all the curlicues and everything that you have in the fabulous water there, they actually can barely afford to keep all of their lifeguards, because they need so many lifeguards on staff just to watch every little curlicue there. I mean, you know, they can't afford that. So I think, you know, I've had people say, well, are they just going to build another pool, like just another pool? And I appreciate the fact that we're trying to make it family friendly. I mean, we've got seniors, huge seniors here in Cardston. We have the Handicap Association, we have the hospital, we have all of these fingers in this community that, including the swim program that I run, that could be using this pool 12 months of the year. Yes, it seems ridiculous, but in my mind, business-wise, I think, well, I'll just make do with this swimming pool that's falling apart, that we have a sump pump going on all the time, until we can afford to get what we can afford.
We didn't have to use a sump pump this year, did we?
No, that was last year. But you know what I'm saying? It just seems like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all about, you know, spending within our own means. I totally support that. Do I want my taxes to go up $500 like everyone keeps throwing that around? No, of course, nobody does. However, as a family, as someone with family in this area and seniors in this area, I think we just have to think outside the box. If we build it, will they come? Will they use it? Will
Will they pay?
Will they pay? Well, I mean, I know Swim Club is paying.
Yep.
I know some aren't,
Yep.
but we are paying, and we're only getting bigger. I mean, look at soccer. When we started soccer, how many kids versus where we're at now, right? 80 to 540. It happens. If we build it, if maybe we can't afford it right now, then maybe we shouldn't be doing it until we can afford to build the complex that this community actually needs. That's what I think.
I got lots here, just one second. Sharon, I think you were first in there.
Is there, would it not be beneficial to be working with the county and the reserve, since there is approximately a third of each of those governments that have citizens coming to the pool? Why would we not build a pool with all three governments? And we've talked about this, but like, would it not drop the taxpayers' payout a third if we did that? Because the county and the reserve are both bigger than the town. So I'm thinking, why let the littlest partner pay the bill? And the other question I have is, I know in Canada there's not a lot of green facilities, but there are some options out there, and I wondered if any of these have like green options, so that we can drop our costs by say 70% in our operating costs, which is the big problem with an indoor pool. Specifically, there's a couple going up in Edmonton, which I just found out about this week, that would drop the cost by about 70% in operating costs. And it would be a full all around. So I just wonder if we can't work together and bring in a lot more partners as far as communities go, so that we could actually have the indoor pool. Because I have to agree with you. I mean, let's just use the old pool and fix it up, because, you know, really, and I agree also, because I have been a lifeguard for 5 years of my life and on a swim team for another 7. And the biggest pool like that is, one, a real liability issue, for one, because it's so big and you're not going to be able to afford the number of lifeguards. So especially if you're going to put it under a tent, you're not going to be able to afford it, I don't think.
So just to that, a couple of things. It's like Sharon said, we've had lots of conversation about involving these other community partners. How do we do it? We've had some discussion, and what we felt we had to get to a point was, okay, now we have some indication of cost. Before, we could go to these different municipal partners and say, do you want to throw some money at it? But we didn't know what that was. And so our intent was to go out and get those costs. And if I can go back to perhaps the county or the Blood Reserve and sit down and say, are you willing to share in capital? Are we looking at something long-term? That's basically up to that council if they feel it represents the needs of their community. That's not an argument I can make here, because I don't live in the county or on the reserve. But it would be the responsibility of you residents that do to talk to your council in that area if you feel that this is the place that you are best served by those kind of facilities. So yeah, Sharon, I absolutely agree that that's still something to be explored. We just wanted to try and get a number, both operationally and both for capital, that we could go. So it was just so vague at that point. very back.
I just have a couple of things. I missed the beginning. First thing, from this plan, it looks like we're planning a water slide as well.
One of the amenities that was planned is,
Yeah.
there's a little twisty one here and a little
Right.
racer one there.
Do we really, Raymond is a really not far way to go on a day to the water slide. Why does Cardston need to have a water slide? Does that not add to the cost? I know it's family friendly and all that stuff. But doesn't it just add, the bigger you make this thing, the more it's gonna cost? Why not just get a
Yes,
pool
to
with a
yes,
roof
to answer
on
your
it and
question.
a running track and we're done?
And that's what we want.
Yeah, running
That's-
track.
that's
No, but I
exactly
just
the
mean, why
feedback.
go all this fanciness when Raymond's just down the road and all we're gonna do is take away from Raymond?
Okay, so if, again, this is exactly why we have this, is that, and that's what I need you to translate on that sheet, is that
Yeah.
if you feel that we have excess amenities and it's adding to the cost, then we need to go back and retool and say, okay, now what's the cost? Because it appears to us there may not be widespread support for this much amenity. And maybe we're now a lot more reasonable. That's exactly what we want to hear, and I appreciate that.
I know when I moved here 25 years ago, I was young, and the seniors voted that we didn't need a roof on the pool. I'm now almost a senior, and it still hasn't got a roof on the pool. And if you want us people who are not that old, but over 50, to stay here,
Yeah.
and that pool is so out of handicapped
Yep.
accessibility there that you're gonna have a lawsuit.
And nobody's denying
Yeah.
the status or the accessibility of the pool.
Really, it has to.
That's how they
have
were
to do
built back
something.
in the day, and that's how it's been maintained,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
I mean, this is wonderful, looks like kind of a fancy hotel kind of setup. And I'm kind of with Paul, I think it's overkill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what we should be looking at is more the design that Claire's Home has, which is a full 6-lane pool with about another half to 2/3 of the pool that's slanted, that lets you,
Sure,
The
yeah, comes
wheelchair.
off the side,
Yeah.
and zero
And,
access, yeah, yeah.
you've got less footage, you don't need as many lifeguards.
Okay, and this is exactly what we want tonight, because this gives us the opportunity to say, and in fact, I don't have it up here, but I had Gerald Bevins do kind of, okay, give me a 6-lane pool, give me a ramp entry, give me a little hot tub and a splash park. You know, relatively straightforward in a square box building. That may be something we need to unearth and get some cost to and look at a little closer, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thinking on that, there's nothing wrong with a conceptual idea from a contractor's point of view. Build it so you can add to it when the feasibility and money's there.
Yep, that we can look at an expandable phased approach to the construction. And with any amenities, whether it's water slides, whether it's little splash mushrooms and all that, those are always easy to add later. So yeah, we do, Jim.
How much of our taxes per household cover the deficit of the existing pool?
$100
$100 per household now with the pool.
I'm doing very rudimentary math here, but I'm saying 1,100 households divided by $100,000, so $90. $90-ish.
And you're projecting that if you do an indoor pool, it would go to, is that the indoor with the arched roof or
If our operational were to go from, say, 100,000
400?
to about 400, you can do the math on 1,100 households. Now, like I said, that's considering that nothing else changes in the budget, that everything else stays. Now, council may have to look and say, well, maybe we're not going to do this, maybe we're not going to do this to offset the cost. That's reasonable.
I've been here for 25 years as well, and 25 years ago, 35 years ago, the population was still the same as it is today. Is that correct?
Roughly, yeah, it's close.
Last year, my taxes increased 12%. And if I had to pay another 360, that's another 10%. I mean, I'd love to have an indoor pool, but I certainly am not in favor of doing it at the taxpayer's expense.
So there's some responsibility that comes back on us and on the town, if the overwhelming consensus is, we'd all like an indoor pool. So, and again, this is exactly, we knew we'd have this variance in opinion that everybody has to weigh out. If we can't come up with sufficient programming, and we can't come up with sufficient partners, then we do have to have a good, long, hard look at what's feasible. Now, I appreciate that a scaled down indoor may be something that needs to be entertained for cost purposes only, so, point taken, Jim. Deb? Oh, and then I'll come back to you, David, sorry. Well, go ahead, David, and then Deb.
We have 1,100 households in this town. How many are pensioners?
I can't answer that.
Would it be 50%? If it's 50% and they're on a fixed income, your increase in their taxes of $360 is a significant increase in the decrease in their available income. And I think it's prohibitive.
And again, I do want to be very clear here, the $360 increase would be if nothing else changed. But if council were to look at other priorities, other programming, and swap them, then it's mitigated.
With
And if
this
we-
pool, right, 364 if you build this pool.
With the roof, yes.
Yeah, but no, with all the fancy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no estimate for what the taxes
And
will
with
go up
nobody
with a
else to
plain, ordinary pool.
No
Well,
other partners.
Let
We
me
haven't
speak to that
considered the
real quick.
county for excavation or anything.
Yeah, let me speak to that real quick. We couldn't analyze the exact square footage and the exact amenity in every little thing in every little pool. So we came up with an average number of 7, who also have a varying degree of amenities in their pool. So I can't answer that to say that if we got rid of this, it would be $330 a year. I don't know.
Okay.
But we had to take an average with a variety of amenities, because I wasn't gonna go to every one and okay, one water slide, one this, one that, this many square feet. It just wasn't gonna work for the purposes of this.
Basically, the projections, many were just that, they're projections.
That's right.
correct? And if the projection of the cost of whatever facility we built, meaning at that price, back with the deficit, that would be the
Yeah.
projected cost.
Is that, your figures include a donation or a percentage or anything from the county?
Yeah, some do, yeah.
County contributes to the whole.
Oh, our projections from, like, say, our county?
Yeah.
No, we did this based on what would it cost if we went it alone, and then we can start to work on our programming partners. Deb?
This might open a can of worms, but you're saying the pool represents $100 of tax money. What is the golf course?
Well, again,
Yeah.
you preface that, Deb, knowing that that's maybe a conversation for another day. But I appreciate what you're saying.
But what I'm saying
We
is,
didn't get a choice on that either.
Yeah,
Well-
I don't use the golf course, and I take my money and put it in the pool instead.
I'll answer it
Yes,
quickly.
yes, you can.
The intent of the golf course is to be cost neutral to the town. So, running a zero budget. And again, I don't want to open a conversation on the golf course, but the mayor's sitting right there, and there's a counselor back there, 2 back there.
but my point is.
Have a conversation with them
My
about it.
point is, the pool is used by more community people than the golf course.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue the point, because I don't know. I don't have anything to substantiate that, say based on memberships or based on, I don't know, but we could find that, but I don't know. I just don't know. Dave?
My concern is that we're looking, say, at a deficit of $400,000 right now, and this can increase every year. Because of the cost of living, the cost of chemicals, the cost of maintenance is gonna keep going up. Now, if people no longer make $20 an hour, so when you're paying high-paid staff, they will get increases as the cost of living goes up. So our $400,000 could become $1 million more.
Potentially, again, I can't say that I know how that would fall out, but it would stand to reason that there would be inflation and pressure on the schools.
My name is Paul. I think we're supposed to stand and state who we are and stand so we can talk and hear everybody. Oh, I'm supposed to face back this way. My question was, I have a couple of comments. To me, swimming or swimming pool is a life skill. It's something that children need to learn, because once they get out on the lake, they have problems if they don't. The other part I wanted to comment on was a possibility of having maybe an indoor/outdoor concept, not all one, of either or. I think there's a benefit of the outdoor pool and there's a benefit of an indoor pool. So maybe and I see in that design there, you actually have a skylight on top there, which is maybe incorporating that kind of idea.
Just so I understand, a hybrid type of thing would extend the season? Would that be the intention?
No, that would, it would extend the season, but you could allow a portion of the pool to be outdoors, because I do think there is some interest in its being outdoors is kind of a nice part to have. But then being able to close that part of the pool and have it open, the main part for the meets, the swim meets, and the lessons throughout the year, maybe a possibility, just something. And the last thing was, maybe consider something similar to the operational costs of one of the other ones you have up there. I know they use ozone as a chemical, and they have their own machine there to generate it, and they use that as an option. And checking on the operational ability of that.
Okay.
I think it's a fair statement to say that our ability to negotiate with the county right now, based on the track record, is as good as it's ever been. This is a council that's worked very, very hard to have good relations with the county. Likewise, we know that there's some good things happening with the tribe. And so I think we're at a threshold that now that we have the numbers, and once we get sort of the direction on which way you folks want to go, as a council, and in a month I may not even be there, it just depends, the opinion of the people in this room and outside, we can sit down with the county and see what, what participation level they're prepared to be in at. We know this, that right now the government is very, very happy when they see municipalities working together. So if the county, which is a separate municipality, and the town, and Blood Tribe, if we could get together and put in a grant application, there's a good chance, and we can't make promises, but there's a good chance we could get the capital dollars for a pool. So then the issue becomes, what can we afford to maintain moving forward? What's the county prepared to participate? What level's the county prepared to participate at? What's the Blood Tribe prepared to participate at? We know operating numbers because of the homework that's been done. I like the comments that I'm hearing. Why would we copy another community down the road 35 or 40 miles and do the same thing they're doing? Let's do one that meets our needs. We have a huge, growing, soccer organization here. So we think that once we get your feelings, we can sit down with the tribe, we can sit down with the county, and move forward in that direction. I agree with what's been said. I don't think personally that we need to copy Raymond or whatever. Let me add one more comment to the equation. About 4 years ago, trying to think outside the box, and that's important that we as a council do that, and I think we've tried hard to do that. I was hoping that when Cardston Elementary School gets its remodel project, we could cooperate. Just imagine if we could have a swimming pool under the same roof as a remodeled Cardston Elementary School. So there's our partnership, just like Claresholm has a partnership with the provincial government. I can tell you that the superintendent was on that exploration committee that Jeff alluded to earlier. They've told us, unfortunately, there are no dollars at all. So that was one of our ideas, thinking outside the box, that didn't get to first base. But partnerships is the way to go, and I appreciate all the input tonight, and obviously we're not done because there's lots of folks want to add to the dialogue here. But just to let you know that we think we're probably better positioned now than ever before to dialogue with the county and with the Blood Tribe.
Did we not do a survey before? It came in our mailboxes and we had a big survey. Where's the
We discussed that
result?
at the beginning, you missed it, but it's right up here if you want to.
Okay.
I'm going to go Chris, Steve, Mr. A.
And
Yeah, I'm Chris. I used to live in Claresholm. In fact, I worked at the Claresholm Care Center and saw them close the outdoor pool and was part of the construction process of the new swimming pool. And I saw firsthand what it did to the community. All of a sudden there were swim clubs and aquafit and programs for the elderly. In terms of, not only was it a benefit physically, but mentally. There was emotional benefits, and I just saw that it was a wonderful thing. And in terms of our community spirit and feeling and mental health as well as physical health, I think we need a pool with a roof on it. And that we need it. I've got people that come to see me that go to Claresholm to swim, and it's a long way for them to go. I think this is a great community, but I think we just lack this. And I'd really like to see a pool with a roof on it. I saw what it did for Claresholm. I think it would do the same thing for Clarkston.
Thanks, Chris. Two down from here, she's had a couple questions. I keep missing her.
Glenn.
Ma'am, you had something?
Well, I think, because I just heard that with this pool in Claresholm, that they got a government grant. Are we not eligible for a government grant to help?
We're always eligible for grant funding.
Grants or taxes.
But
That's different, because that's the government program that operates that, and it was built specifically for that purpose.
yeah, that's a really different setup, and I think it would be very hard to duplicate, not to discount the benefits of it, for sure, like Chris mentioned. To answer your question, we're not, I don't want to say we're not as concerned, but let's say we had a $5 million hurdle ahead of us. Ask Stacy how daunting $1 million soccer field looked a couple years ago. You can do magical things if you can if you can really get all your provincial and federal partners to come on side. Those grants are available to build things, but it's really that ongoing operational cost we're trying to pay specific attention to. And you don't get grants for operational costs in the municipality. There's some little things, but by and large, the feds in the province aren't interested in financing communities on a long-term basis, but they're happy to help get things going. And then the community really needs to take a hold of it and make sure it runs from there. But duly noted, let me get to Stephen and then Mr. Reed.
Just a background question, I don't know the answer, so I'm sure maybe later do, but the state of the current outdoor pool doesn't need to be addressed right now. Just following up on the thread that was brought up, because we are in a projected provincial deficit, and who knows where that's going. And just how the 360 could be perhaps mitigated by other savings, and making it also worse if the province downloads the
Right.
So,
the pool ran again, and we're thankful for it. And we're making an assumption it will go again next year. But it's not without quite a few Band-Aids and a little TLC and a little hope and wishing that everything fires and everything balances. And Randy could share with you lots of tales about spending time underneath things in the camp room, the pool, I'm sure. It needs some attention sooner than later. If we're looking at, say, a 5-year time frame, we'd have to do something to keep it operational in that time. There'd have to be a fairly considerable Band-Aid, I think. And we've looked at those. We've looked at, liners for the pool and new boilers and those things to get us going in the interim. But we're glad it ran another year. We fully anticipate it running the next one. But boy, those are the original boilers in that thing. And that's the original basin. And it's getting to be some aging equipment. So that's the background on that, Stephen. Mr. Reed?
I'm Jack, maybe some of you know me. Could you just tell me what percentage of the ratepayers responded on that survey that you talked about?
If I recall, there was, give me just a second to find it. 376.
So about a third, not
Well, no, about a tenth.
Well, you're talking about people, but I'm talking about
homes. I would assume this would probably represent a home. That would be the response for that household.
So when was that done?
In '07, if I recall. I don't recall the month. This came out in July of '08 is when all the results were compiled, so I'm guessing on the tail end. Marion, do you know?
It was the early '08, late '07 is when we started that process.
I just wanted to have that clarified because it sort of came across that there was a majority of the people wanted the swimming pool. That's not necessarily so when you get back down.
And that's why I made sure to say it was the majority of the respondents. But I did not specify how many respondents, so very good point.
Also, the numbers that you got there to do a facility, those numbers reflect a mortgage paid out over so many years, or is that reflected in the capital for free?
No, in fact, I put here on this one for an example. This was their projected loss, not including $188,000 capital payment. These are operational numbers, and anyone that had to finance their facility, I didn't include financing charges on that, but I did when I knew about it. In this one, for example, this is on the outdoor. That was their loss, not including financing or principal payments, which they had. So we were looking specifically at operational, for sure.
I think we need to be clear that what's happened in Carson in the last year with some grant money that has happened because of the downturn in the economy when governments moved to push money out they didn't even have to help to job incentive. So it was, there was a provincial government going along merrily, and all of a sudden they had a $4 billion deficit because they got into this thing trying to get out of this twist that we're in with the downturn in the economy. So who knows? I think that they're going to be pretty anxious to get their balance back, and whether there would be, I'd be surprised to see a reoccurrence of this type of thing that we've had recently. And as far as the reserve in the county, I don't think we should be taking that to the bank. It's a long ways away from just sitting down and having a chat about it. Also, when we talk about the seniors and on a fixed income, frankly, I think I'll be able to scrape up the money from my taxes, but there's some people that are going to have a hard time. And the other question is related to this and taxes. Is there going to be, there has to be some absorption of increased taxes with the new sewer system that had to go out over the hill in the upcoming budget, I would suppose. That's a cost share program.
Yeah, and not to divert too much from the conversation, but that'll be recovered via utility. You call it a tax, call it a utility, but it'll be recovered not so much in municipal taxes per se, but on utility.
Well, it's a tax.
Yeah,
you have to raise the taxes to pay it.
It's semantics, but yes, that's how it'll be dealt with. So we had to take money out to do that sewer outfall line for sure.
And it'll be probably similar to the levy that's added on the water system in St. Mary's budget.
Yeah, that's done now, if I'm not mistaken.
Not paid for, it goes for 20 years.
The St. Mary's intake?
The debenture on the St. Mary's intake is paid.
Yeah, so
it's paid.
Yeah.
So how come it's still on the utility bill?
No, it was removed, the water rider was removed in May.
I gotta look closer.
Yeah, I think it's May. But I appreciate your comments, Mr. Aiden. Let's do, I don't know what time it's getting to be.
8 o'clock.
Let's do a couple more, and then we'll be here to answer individual questions. I've got Sharon, Rebecca, and then Bill.
I'm just wondering, when you said that you could to hold off, like for, you say, 2 more years, because like Steve was talking about, the cycle in funding actually is about 2 or 3 years away for funding for this kind of project.
Sure.
And so how much are we talking to fix a boiler or to make this pool last for 2 more years? If we were in the midst of building a new one.
Randy and I were just having that conversation this morning. We know what a pool liner is about $120,000, and we anticipate boilers around 60 or 80 to change them up. So again, the boilers are still running, knock on wood, if I can find some. And we hope that they continue to. But yeah, it'd be somewhere in that range to get a quick Band-Aid, Mary.
Just to clarify on that, we have been using fiberglass to repair the basin, but we may get to a point where that's not going to work anymore. So in that case, we would have to replace the basin, which may mean closing the pool for a summer anyway to be able to accommodate that. So.
Just to add something to what Sharon said, I've completely forgotten. Anyway, no, but I was actually going to make a suggestion. I used to volunteer at the YMCA in Calgary, and how they cover a lot of their maintenance costs is they get volunteers. And so, for instance, for a membership for yourself, you could volunteer for, say, 5 hours a week. Now, obviously, people can't volunteer to be lifeguards if you're not qualified, but you can volunteer to do maintenance work and that sort of thing. So that might be something you might want to consider when it comes to maintenance.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, okay. We always think about what we would really like, and, you know, I'm just wondering, it sounds like there is an increase in the number of people swimming, and, you know, the swim clubs and things like that. Nobody has mentioned that we actually already have an indoor pool in town. It, you know, belongs to a private organization, and it is available for public. Do you know how much it is used? Is it utilized? Do we use that facility?
I can't answer that, Bill, I don't know. Now, obviously, it has shortcomings and you can't facilitate competitive swimming.
Yeah.
But for leisurely use, I can't answer your question, but the point is well taken.
Just a thought, okay, now this is just another curveball maybe to throw into it, but okay, what would it take, okay, maybe another study for the complete revamp of, let's say, the boiler system and what's needed to actually repair the pool to adequate, and then put a roof on it like it should have been in the first place when it had the money for it?
Well, should have been and had the money I can't speak to, but.
So was there an 82? I know it was.
I was 5, so I can't speak.
Take the existing facility and modify it
Yeah.
cheaper and still be within a
It's not
parameter.
handicapped.
What
That's
I
what it says,
can,
modify.
yeah, what I can speak to that is we had a similar comparison. We went and looked at a new outdoor facility, and then we looked at another community that completely remodeled their existing outdoor facility. Now, they didn't make it indoor, but go with me here for a second to give some idea. So they took their existing basin, in fact, it was very similar to ours, just